Hey everyone, what's up? Today I wanted to talk a bit about cleanup crews and specifically snails. At Tidal Gardens, we go pretty light on cleanup crews in general. For example, there's really not any hermit crabs here. In this whole place, there may be only 1 or 2 hermit crabs, and we got those as refugees from people taking down their tanks. I'm not a fan of crabs because there's always a risk that they might kill something that they should not be killing, like another member of the cleanup crew or a coral. Long story short, I really just don't trust them. A little while back, we had a system that really struggled with algae. This tends to happen towards the middle of summer as nutrients that build up over the winter without any problem suddenly get a whole bunch more light. That causes algae to grow if we don't ramp up water changes heavily. Anyway, we didn't do enough water changes this past summer and we got a nuisance algae bloom. At one point, a couple of the tanks looked unrecoverable. We were scrubbing the tank as well as trying to clean individual corals for a while, but the algae was just too persistent. Instead of just restarting the tank, I decided to put in a bunch of these Astraea snails. It didn't even take a week for them to do serious work on the algae. One system seemed like a lost cause because of the algae on the plugs themselves and in between the polyps of the corals, something that we just simply can't deal with manually. There's a couple things that make these guys great herbivores. First off, they're fairly small. There's certainly larger snails you can get like Mexican turbos for example, but there's an advantage to snails being smaller. Smaller snails don't bulldoze your tank and knock corals all over the place. Also, smaller snails can get into smaller crevices to clean out algae that larger snails wouldn't be able to get into. Second, they're surgical when it comes to cleaning. As I mentioned a moment ago, we had algae practically growing on the corals themselves, and these snails ate right up to the edge of the polyp. They literally made what looked like an unrecoverable system spotless, and that includes the corals. Third, and perhaps best of all, they're cheap. You can usually find them for around $1 a piece. No cleanup crew member is perfect, so let's go over some of the things to watch out for. The main concern with these snails is that they struggle a little bit flipping themselves over. Now I don't know how some of these snails make it in the wild, but for whatever reason, if you see one flipped on its back, don't assume it'll be fine. Give it a hand and flip it over. The second thing is, some of them come with their own pests in the form of pyramid snails. Pyramid snails are tiny, so it may take a close look even to notice them in the first place. These small, cone-shaped snails will eventually kill their host, so I recommend physically removing them whenever you see them. We just use like a paper towel and wipe them right off. Astraea snails now, they're pretty tough, but the bigger concern is pyramid snails can move on to other mollusks in your tank, like say that $200 clam you have sitting there as a centerpiece. So yeah, if you see them, wipe them off early and often preferably. The last thing to look out for is to make sure that the snails come from a tropical climate. The ones we have are from Florida, which is great. Unfortunately, lots of snails that are sold in the hobby are harvested from cold water areas, some of which look a lot like Astraeas, so again, be careful. Cold water snails do not last very long in our tropical systems. Oops, I lied about that being the last point. The last point is to take your time acclimating them, because these snails handle the acclimation process somewhat poorly, so if you can drip acclimate them, that works best. Also, be sure not to dip these guys. It may seem to go without saying to not use pest control dips, but trust me, it's been done before. Anyway, I just wanted to share my overwhelmingly positive experience with these snails. They're making a world of difference in my tanks right now. Alright guys, until next time, happy reefing.